My name is Mark Waxberger. I'm the CEO and founder of the Capital Hotels and Apartments, and I've been asked to speak on a case study of serviced apartments, being a case study essentially about the Capital Hotels, and I guess why we've disrupted a very broken hotel market and hotel sector. And to put in perspective, whether it is a case study for hotels into Africa, and what are really the pros and cons of serviced apartments, bearing in mind other disruptors in the market such as Airbnb. So just for those of you who have heard this bit of a buzzword and a growing buzzword about serviced apartments, 9% of all hotel rooms internationally are now serviced apartments, but they often have a different name in the market depending on from which market you're from. So if you were to build a serviced apartment hotel in say, Nairobi, you would need to know that you need to market it under different names to the different clientele internationally. Some of these names: extended stay hotel, that seems to be the American name; apartment hotels, apart hotel is the European name; serviced apartments, condominiums, and suites. What it is about them that has taken 9% of all hotel rooms, and that's been the highest growth internationally of all hotel rooms, is in the serviced apartment space, is essentially more space. When you go into a hotel room of 25 square meters versus an apartment of, say, 50 square meters with a dining room, kitchen, you have that more space, particularly as a business traveler, and we're very much in the business market, so more space matters. Workspace with that. We can accommodate families, both in two-bedroom apartments, one-bedroom apartments, sometimes three-bedroom apartments, and our whole secret sauce is we provide a flexibility and a mix of all, which I'll tell you about more just now. So we attract families, sharing. We often have people who will travel as two work colleagues, and they'll be working on a project, say upgrading IT infrastructure in one of the banks, and they're on a project for 2 weeks or 3 weeks in a city that they're unfamiliar with. So they'll like to travel as a colleague group, two of them taking a two-bedroom apartment, each with their own bathroom, and then using a common kitchen, lounge, and living space to do team building kind of work, and and obviously getting the benefit of sharing that facility, and theoretically almost halving the price because it's two people sharing. So that's been quite strong from a sharing perspective. We also protect the shoulder demands, and what that means in the hotel world is, in the world of business travel, you find essentially Monday to Friday are very busy, so Monday night to Thursday night, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday are quiet. So you have a hotel that can be at 100% occupancy in weekdays, falling to sometimes in the teens, the occupancies in the weekends, which is called a shoulder period. And serviced apartments means people stay longer. They stay 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We have people who stay with us for a year at a time sometimes. They have better options, quite frankly, if they're going to stay for a year. But if they're staying for a month or two, that protects those low occupancy shoulder periods. And we reward them with that through a stay longer and save discount. So you can book a night with us at a price that is approximately 13% reduced if you're staying for 8 nights or longer. And if you go to 28 nights plus, that price comes down by a discount of up to 30%. On top of that, we give corporates discounts as well. So the market rewards you for staying longer. Of course, we make it up in the occupancy and lower costs. So the big driver for us, having started in 2008, when we converted a residential block into a serviced apartment building that competed with the hotel sector, the big driver for us was these consultants and project demand. In 2008, you found that even though the business was founded in the heart of the GFC, there was still a lot of consultants around building our infrastructure. As an example, the Gautrain. where we had Bombella and we had international engineers coming on a project basis to advise us 2 weeks at a time, sometimes 2 months at a time. And they're looking for safety, they're looking for flexibility. I need to stay an extra 2 nights, I need to go an extra 3 nights early. And so a service department on this model catered really for that market, and it was a differentiator in the market, and hence very successful. The consultant project demand for me is something that's a major driver into Africa. If you think about the brain drain of our continent today, unfortunately we have to import skills internationally. I see consultants who come from Europe, who come from Germany, who come from India, software engineers. We have to import those skills, and they're the ones upgrading the IT systems in our banks, as that example, and they need to be accommodated. They need to be accommodated quite close to where they're working from a business hotel perspective. So, as I said to you, more than 9% internationally is the number of service departments out of the whole hotel sector. Yet in Africa, less than 2%, of which we're 1.5% as the Capital Hotels and Apartments, with 1,500 rooms under ownership, lease, or quasi-management. So it is a growing space, and it's a space that gives a lot of flexibility. Some owners of residential property may start looking at converting into the service department space as a way of getting and tapping into that market. Just in terms of our case study, the Capital, as I say, 1,500 rooms. In terms of the rest of the market, there are independents, many, many independents. If you look at it, you've had, as I said, residential apartments that have been built, as an example, in pretty much any major city that I can think of. And then they get a little bit stuck, and they say the market for sales is not there, the market for letting is not there. Why don't we convert it into a service department? And a lot of people have done it, and they've done it successfully, and a lot of people not so successfully. But when you look at the market in Africa, it's mostly made up of independents. It could be the developer of the building who's now running it as a service department. There are some brands in the space. Marriott Residence, as an example, is a big name. So Marriott has something like 10 or 15 different brands, and Marriott Residence is one of them. They also have Marriott Executive Apartments. So depending on the star category, or depending on what the makeup of that room type is and that look and feel of the hotel, they call it Marriott Residence or Marriott Executive Apartments. There's a Hilton option. But really in South Africa, there is very few. Marriott is coming into Melrose Arch, and there's very few brands. Legacy is one of the other strong brands in South Africa. We're also seeing leisure holiday homes that act as service departments, and obviously the big buzzword there is how everyone's Airbnb-ing. So they're taking their leisure properties and they're Airbnb-ing it, or otherwise running it in any other format to attract a leisure audience into a service department. The online travel agencies, the OTAs, you'll find listings on booking.com of service departments, and it's actually a big growing sector for the online travel agents as well. So service apartments is growing, and it's catching up to that 9% internationally. So just to tell you some of the pitfalls of the service departments, and I think Airbnb has those same pitfalls. And that is that an apartment hotel meets really two market demands. You have a medium stay, and you have price purchases. So when you look online, be it on Airbnb, be it on booking.com, you'll find that the price just undercuts the market. You have most of these independent hotels who say, or independent residential establishments who say, I'm going to create a service department. And what do? They put it online on booking.com. They get no traction. because it's a brand that's not known, and ultimately then they resort to thrashing the price to attract the demand. And that does fill them up, but at very low, what's called average daily rates, particularly net of the online travel agents or Airbnb's commissions. And they also attract some medium stays, which is a market, like I say, of someone staying, say, 3, 4, 5, 6 nights, maybe up to 2 weeks. And I'm going to tell you just now about how the hotel world works very well when you attract multiple markets, more than those kind of 2 markets. You need to have a mix of business where you have business coming in the weekday and then different business coming in the weekend, that you have leisure and business and government all coming together at different times to fill you up to the maximum potential that the hotel has. So the pitfall of serviced apartments and Airbnb is really they go after those 2 markets. There's a perceived lack of service. If you go to an Airbnb and you find that there's no toilet paper, then what do? You have to potentially inconvenience yourself to go and get back in an Uber to go and get that toilet paper. You can complain as much as you want, but the toilet paper's not there. You can call down or phone someone, maybe they're there, maybe they're not. So whether there is the lack of service, there's also a perceived lack of service. So some of the big corporates just don't allow Airbnb bookings because it won't meet their specifications for their employees. They also can't take groups. So when you have, in the hotel world, groups is one of the biggest businesses. When you have a company that's doing a group event and they're sending sometimes 100 delegates at a time, obviously you can't get into Airbnb on that basis, or someone's got a better room than another one. It just doesn't work. And of course, when you're in the independent serviced apartments, that often doesn't work either. There just aren't enough rooms, and it doesn't make sense to interrupt a long stay by putting a group through for 1 night. So no groups, no conferencing. As I said, few brand standards. You don't necessarily know exactly what you're going to get with the independents and the Airbnb. And there's very low standardization. So like I say, you could have a very different looking apartment to one of your colleagues, and that can lead to a bit of tension when someone got the penthouse and someone got the room with no windows. So our case study is really where we've come and said, let's pivot into a space that attracts 8 market demands. And the way we do that really is that we combine hotels, conferencing, and apartments into one common establishment. So some of the pictures that you've been seeing are our establishments downstairs. I'll just show you. There's our apartments and hotel rooms in our new development called the Capital on Park. That's the Capital on Park on Catherine Street. And essentially you can see this is not like arriving at an Airbnb. There is a ground floor full of facilities, serviced pool area, bars, delis, room service, restaurants, gym. And when you combine that with having apartments and conferencing upstairs, then, like I say, we can go after the short stay hotel room market, and we use our apartments for upgrades. So if you are a transient business traveler staying 1 night, you'll generally stay in our hotel rooms. And of course, that opens up the market for us to compete head-on with the hotel sector with simple 25 square meter rooms, comfortable, basic, but yes, we are competing very much on price as well. And we've managed to be 25% less expensive than the hotel market, and it's really been because of all these synergies that I've spoken about. So someone will stay with us for 1 night in a hotel room, or if they want a bit more of a lavish night, they'll stay in an apartment as an upgrade for their 1 night stay. Of course, we can go after the big corporates for their transient business. So the banks, as an example, are our clients, and they will say they don't trust serviced apartments, but they trust sending groups into a hotel, sometimes 20, 30 people in one night. Meetings and events is a big space for us. We have our biggest venue is at the Capitol on Park, where we have 350-seater, right down to some of our standardized hotels that have 100-seater conference venues. And of course, all flexible, split venues where you can divide the room. Flexibility is key, because when you have flexibility, you can go after multiple markets. You can go after the big conferences and the small conferences, the breakaways. And of course, every time someone stays on a conference, generally we will push the accommodation with it as well. So I don't know if any of you have ever said you tried to book a day conference for your business. You're trying to book a 30-seater conference, like maybe similar to a room like we're having today. And every hotel you call says, I'm sorry, we're full, but they're not. And what they're actually doing is they're biasing that they will take your business if you're staying for the night. Conferencing is a way of filling your hotel rooms. And alternatively, they'll jack up the price for a day conference. Price purchases through yielding. What am I talking about there? Okay, sorry. In terms of revenue management in the hotel sector, I don't know how many of you know that your next door neighbor on any given night might be paying as much as double the price you've paid. Same as when you get on an airline, you get on that flight, the person next to you might have paid literally twice the rate that you paid to sit in that seat. And that's because of our yielding flexibility. When you're in the world of just serviced apartments, generally the yielding is not available. You can't push your price up and down because you're attracting longer stays. When you're in our world of hotels plus apartments, you'll see our rates online are going up or down depending on all the demand periods and supply, both in our hotels and in the total market around us. So we'll analyze through very sophisticated algorithms and systems. We will analyze what are our competitors' rates on any given day. We shop across the online travel agents, and we see what are their rates. We look at our occupancy, we look at our forecast demand, and we then get a recommended price that our revenue management team says, okay, tonight we need to sell this room higher or lower, and by the way, someone's checked out, a big group's just left, and we'll thrash our price down online to pick up the demand quickly and run specials and activate our marketing campaigns around that. Mostly digital marketing, all tracked through keyword searches and the like. So these mechanisms are not normally available or not well used in the serviced apartment space, but very well utilized in the hotel space, and we're putting that into hotels plus apartments. We can attract families of all sizes. We have 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom apartments, and we have a flexibility through an interleading door system that it could be a 1-bedroom apartment today, and then on the weekend the family joins and comes into the second bed. I'll show you a slide on that shortly. We can attract a government market, and we attract the tour operator market. So I advocate in our case study that the success has been to combine apartments and hotels. So, as I said, combination of hotel apartment conference. We are building a brand. The Capitol has been going for 10 years, but the brand has been built only in the last 2 years. We have large hotels of 300 plus rooms, and we have standard hotels of approximately 100 rooms. We provide a full service, meaning we have a reception, we have concierge, we have guest relations, we have room service. We're in the 4- and 5-star graded sector and moving into the 3-star space as well. We have incredible security, which is paramount. When you're a business traveler or even a leisure traveler in Africa, what is the first priority? It's security. And if you go to an Airbnb or you go to an independent apartment hotel, there might be a lack of security or a perceived lack of security, which is obviously dangerous in attracting that business. And Today, travelers are looking for society. They're looking for a vibe. When you go downstairs in our hotels, you'll find that that's where people are congregating, around the bars. They want to be entertained. They want to talk with their group of 20 or 30 travelers. Of course, they all want to have drinks together. So Airbnb and the independent apartment hotels generally miss that selling point of the mostly millennial and Z generation traveler. I've spoken about our revenue management system. There's a dashboard in our office that just shows how we're looking continuously. Our central reservations is constantly plotting what are the lull days and pushing clients to book the hotel that's got the availability as opposed to necessarily the hotel that they want to book. So these are quite interesting, how you might get told a hotel is full, but it's actually where the hotel wants you to stay. So service departments offers one of the best de-risking models, and that then in turn unlocks funding. And the way that works is that, I don't know if any of you have ever been to an auction for a hotel that's in distress, but when the hotel is in distress and it has 323 square meter rooms, then it's in distress mostly because the market has changed. As an example, an oversupply after the World Cup soccer in South Africa. And you'll find that any buyer will have the same problem turning it around. It's not a management problem per se, it's a market problem. With apartment hotels, you generally have a plan B and a plan C. Plan B is I can now rent these apartments out into the residential market, and plan C is I can sell them as sectional title. I might sell the whole building on that basis. I might sell some of the building, some of the apartments on that basis to essentially lower my supply of units and hence theoretically double my occupancy. That then makes it fundable for banks and other investors who say, you know, if times really turn bad, at least I can bank it on a residential model. I can look at what is the rate per square meter. I can say what is the price that residential buyers are paying in the market, and I can know that even after a first loss of 20%, there's the ability to bail out and pay back the banks and investors. This is a room model of ours where essentially we're showing that there's multiple doors into the room. So in the center you'll find an interleading door into a one-bedroom apartment, and on either side are standard hotel rooms. And what we do is we create an interleading door system that makes it a one-bedroom apartment today, and then, like I say, on the weekend you might have the family joins, or you might say that there's those two business travelers traveling together for the week. The point is the flexibility of an interleading door system means we can tackle multiple markets. So we as the capital think that the hotel sector is broken, and we've challenged the hotel sector by saying that there's an alignment of interest problem with management companies. Management companies, like some of the players that I've mentioned earlier, will come in and say, I will operate it for you. Here's my manual, here's my book of the specification that you need to build it to, and I will gladly manage it for you. They put in no money, they take no risk, and of course, they make all promises on what the occupancy and revenue is going to be, but often don't deliver. And that makes it unbankable and uninvestable. We've come in as an owner-operator into the market, and we've said not only will we develop the properties, develop these apartment hotels, we'll own it as well, and be the operator. And we can be any combination of that. Sometimes we can just come in as an operator, like we've done in Umhlanga, where we've been contacted by the developers of the Pearls development in Umhlanga, and we've come in and leased apartments and ground floor and operate, just being an operator and not necessarily the developer and owner. But we always put risk in. We'll sign a fixed lease. We will do a management agreement with putting skin in the game. We'll be a co-developer. We'll be the developer. We have our own funding. We have private equity funding, as well as funding in terms of Section 12J, where we have raised over 500 million rand. So we challenge the hotel sector by saying, if you have a piece of land, if you have a property, and you want to build a hotel, but you're finding that it's not happening because the operator's not prepared to put skin in the game, then please think of us as someone who may sign a fixed lease with you or may put in money and be a JV partner with you, but either which way definitely aligns interests, and then I stay up at night to make sure that I fill those rooms. So our rollout is, this is my last slide. Our rollout is we 10 years later have the distribution model. We have our revenue management system and our know-how. And so we're looking to roll out 2 hotels per annum currently is what we do. We open 2 new hotels a year, very focused on South Africa, but now growing into Africa. We're looking to ramp that up to 5 hotels per annum by 2023. And the way we're doing that is we're standardizing. So if you come to us now and say, I would like to have a hotel on my site, we will be able to pull out the architecture and give it to your architects and say that's what it's going to look like. And so we can go quite quickly because of a standardized model and move up to 5 hotels per year. We are very focused on business hotels. You won't find us in leisure locations, and because that's the distribution that we're into. We're in with all the corporates, we're in with all the professional conference organizers, we're into business hotels. We like shopping centers because we find our guests enjoy staying attached to a mall. If you're on a project for 2 weeks, then you want to use the entertainment of a mall. You want to go to the restaurants. You want to go to the cinemas if there are. So we want to build hotels on the empty parking lots of retail shopping centers. So for those of you in retail who say, I'm worried about letting in light of the online world, well, please think of us as someone who can essentially take bulk from you, convert bulk, because there's a big synergy between hotel and retail, particularly with the parking as well. We have perfectly counter-cyclical parking requirements. We're targeting 5,000 square meter plots for standalone, or 2,500 square meter plots when linked to a mall. We've identified 20 sites in South Africa that we're moving to, places like Nelspruit, Bloemfontein, Port Elizabeth, Tiger Valley, any kind of business nodes. And I've got a list of that if any of you are wanting more information. And like I say, we have the funding in hand. So we're not looking for funding, we're looking for sites. And we are now starting to roll out into Southern and Eastern Africa. In respect of West Africa, quite frankly, we're not there yet. It's not high on our priority list, but it doesn't mean that if there is a project that's the right location, the best location, and you're looking for someone who's going to put skin in the game, then we can talk about it, but it's not high on our priority list. Thank you. Any questions? Yes. There's a microphone.
Thanks for the presentation. My question is, you mentioned you're expanding into East Africa. Do you have any serious locations that you're looking at, or any countries in particular?
So I get approached probably once a week for East African property owners who are staying in our hotels. They really love what we're doing, and they will often approach me. And so I'm looking at any point in time at a number of sites, but I haven't concluded anything yet because up until I'd say 4 or 5 months ago, I've said we're not ready, and now I'm saying we're ready. And it's mostly got to do with me concentrating on a few big hotels that we've recently opened, which have now been pegged down. And so now we're getting into East Africa. But as I said, it's not actually as high up on the priority list as South Africa. And the reason is that in South Africa we have the funding in terms of our Section 12J fund, and also we have a debt capital market that really supports us. And the minute we're into East Africa, we need to obviously work with a local partner who has a site, ideally linked to a mall, the best sites only, that says they know that we're a great operator and they want us in as the operator, and they appreciate we'll put our skin in the game as well.
Hi, yeah. So I've looked at this service apartment model, and most of them don't seem to focus on having big conference or events, but your model seems to focus on conference and an event. Is that part of why your model has been disruptive? And then secondly, you did mention that I'm not sure it's a full service room or it's a suite, that are 25 square meters. Would that be a full service, typical hotel room, or would that be a suite?
So that's just a hotel room. So if you look on the sides, the two modules on the sides are really the 25 square meter standard hotel room. They have a bar, fridge, and a kettle. And you must order room service if you want food. And that interleads to about a 50 square meter, 1-bedroom apartment that has all the full service, the oven, the extractor, the ability to cook in, order in, arrange with us grocery deliveries, or arrange it yourself, or one night take the night off and say, actually, I just want to order room service. In terms of our model, we've pivoted to the world of events and conferencing because of the pitfalls of the service department industry that I've described earlier. That essentially that's the place we started. So between 2008 and 2011, we were only into service departments. And we created a differentiator in the market, and it was very successful. But then between Airbnb coming along and a lot of independents doing the same model, we actually pivoted and said it's more successful when you combine events and conferencing and hotel rooms.
If you were to get a partner who has the land and the funding, would you be ready to get into an operating contract? Would that, because it would be you'd be de-risking. You don't need the finance to come from South Africa. It's already available in East Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we invest, we'll look for a return on that investment. And if we don't need to invest, then of course we'll come in and still be the operator. The issue is that normally people will be used to saying, I have the funding, and I'm looking for an operator, so let me go to some of the big brands of this world, the Marriotts, the Hiltons, and let them be an operator. I'm saying in many instances that creates a disalignment of interests because they're just a management company that's not taking any risk. And we're saying, no, we'll be an operator, but we have to put skin in the game because it's wrong not to. I believe this is the last question.
Just very quickly, what sort of manning ratios are you looking at in the service department as compared to rooms? And if you can identify 2 or 3 key operational challenges in managing service departments.
Sorry, just start the beginning of it again.
What sort of manning ratios are you looking at?
Manning ratios.
Yes.
Okay, so we have 2 models. One of the big benefits of a service department that doesn't have all the facilities that we have, so I spoke about how it attracts just 2 markets, but one of the big benefits is it's manned by approximately 8 staff, excluding outsourced housekeeping. So very, very low manpower, very limited service. You'll come in, there's a front desk, there's maybe a coffee shop. Of course, there's the back of house in terms of housekeeping management, facilities management, but very, very low manpower required there and a very limited offering. So it can be, if you do manage to fill the apartments, it can give you a really good return in that model. Our full service, it's very comparable to the hotels. The Capital on Park has over 320 rooms, 350-seater conference center. So there we have manpower of over 110 direct, excluding the outsourced housekeeping and security and the like. And we amortize that cost over having continuous day conferences, restaurants busy and vibey. The hotel rooms are turning constantly. And we found both models work, but for us, the model that is going to form a higher success going forward is the latter. Thank you, everyone. I am available to chat more if anyone is interested.